Hello everyone. I am Surya of third CSC. Today I want to discuss a few important topics of JavaScript. They are closures, callbacks, promise, and async await. So let's start with our first concept, closures. Let me say what's a closure first of all. Closure is something like is a function that ha function having access to the scope of its parent function after its parent function has returned it. For suppose like we have an parent function and child function, then the child function can have an access to the parent scope even after the parent scope has returned the value of it. So it makes us allow us to use in private variables which will be help us in encapsulation. So let's start what's enclosure. For that, let me start with a basic code. So here I have an money of 300 rupees, and when I call I have created a spend function with a name sending it as a parameter, and whenever I call the function, 100 rupees will be deducted from it. If I have money greater than zero, I'll console log the amount, how much is remaining from the main, and else I have that name. I have no money is the thing I want to display. But here the thing is like every user need to have 300 rupees. But as I have used money as a global one, now if send say spend Elise, spend Bob, spend Charlie, spend David, then the all amount will be like spent by let's see how it will be executed. Let me say just now see. Alice spent first 100 rupees, and Bob spent the next 100 and remaining 100. Charlie spent the last 100 and remaining is 0. David is saying that spent all money. Actually, David hasn't had his 300 rupees. So, how can we handle it? Here comes the concept of closure. Let me show how I can convert this into a closure. I'll write an outer function. Let's say as its name as spend tracker. And as we know, we'll take a name from the parameter and I'll write it like this. So I'll use this whole thing inside this function. Now, I don't want again to send it here, but I need to return it because I need to use the spend function here. So I'll return the spend here. So now I have this 100, 300, right? Now let's see how it works. This is of no use for us now. So let me create an variable like let's say Ellie spent money. So I'll create this thing called tracker and I'll send the Ellie's name. And I'll also create for Bob let like this. Now I'll call Elise 3 times. So what makes Elise is Elise makes it call the spend function. So we know that when our spend function is called, 100 rupees will be directed. Elise, Elise. Now I'll call Bob. Generally, what happens if it is like a before one, right? So after calling Elise 3 times, Bob shouldn't have money. But what happens when closure is done? Let's check. Uh, what it's saying? Elise spent written something somewhere. Really? Oh, sorry, I haven't saved the file. Let me rerun it. See, now Ali spent first 100, he has remaining 100, 200 rupees. He had spent next 100, he has 100 remaining. Last, he has 0 rupees. But when I called Bob, he actually has again 300. So this makes this inner function have access to the parent scope value even after it returns. So this makes it a private variable for every function. This is what a closure is. Let's move on to the callbacks, a concept of callbacks. What is a callback? We generally see, what is a callback? Callback is a function that is asked as an argument to another function. And this function is executed once after the main function is completed, which we pass. So let me say it might be, so let's take this example. Like I have a function called add. So whenever we know, right, function declaration, everything, whenever the two parameters are passed, I'm consoling log their sum. And I also have an divide. So whenever there is an result of division, I'll pass it. Now what I'll do is I'll have a callback function here. So I created a function called calculate. Here it has an where parameters, three parameters, unlike the others. First two are the variables and second one is an operation. What's this operation? This operation is a callback function. Operation is callback function. Let's say how this works. Whenever I send a value and when this is there, it is returning the operation of their values. So this operation calls the whatever the function we have. Let's check it like this. Calculate 10 and 10 comma 5 add. So what it makes is it goes to this function and during operation it goes to add of a comma b. Then it executes this one. So how it's working? When I call the parent function, after the execution of parent function, it is going to the execute the callback function. This is what the callback we thought. So let's run and check it. Callback dot js. See, I've sent add, the sum is 50. When I send the division, the result is 2. So these are what callbacks. Uh, Now coming to the the callback and closure are completed. Next thing we want to see is promise. So what is we hear many times promise in JS. What is a promise? Like simply we can say that promise is an object or state where which represents like it is neither it is it it eventually like it finally either completes or failures. It is a state, it's in current state now, it's neither it present it's neither completed nor like failure. So it eventually like finally it might be completed or it might be a failure of an asynchronous operation. Why asynchronous operation? Because the synchronous operation would definitely be like does not block the block the flow of execution, but asynchronous blocks the flow of execution for certain amount of time, right? Doesn't stop it. Like asynchronous does not stop the flow, but synchronous, like if it the function call waits here, then the down functions doesn't work. So this promise makes our like it can make our asynchronous function like this. Let's see an normal example of promise. I have an function called fetch data. So in that I'm returning another function where it is a new object, creating a new promise object where it takes two parameters, resolve and reject. It finally has two states, right? Like uh, actually it has three states: pending, resolved, and rejected. So, and it is this function is like I'm having a timeout function for 1 second. So what happens in between after the 1 second? What should happen is like I have a const variable which is true for sake of now. So if this success is true, like if success is true, I want to resolve the data saying that data is being fetched. If this is like success is not true, let me say that it's an failed. What fetching is failed. This is there. Let me not come into this now right now. Let me call the function. What happens? Fetch data. I'll console log the fetch data and I'll show it. See, l- so what might happen? Because this is an asynchronous program. Because it's wait for 100 seconds or 1 second, and I need to get this output. What might we get? Let's see. Mm, promise dot just. We're getting promises pending. Why? Because when I entered it, 1 second of execution is not completed because I called this function, this got activated. It is still 1 second not completed. Then the promise says that wait till I am in pending mode. Here, promise has two concepts. This is promise creator. This stuff where the promise is created. Let me see it like this. It's a promise creator, and where we call the below one is called let me where we use that promise is called an pro promise caller. So but I want to know the data what it happens. So for that we'll have an then catch blocks. So what happens is I'll call the function and I'll use then block. In then block, I'll get the data, whatever might be the data I'm getting from when it is resolved. Then executes when it will be resolved. And I'm console log that data. And for suppose, let's say it is causing some issue like error. So I need to have an catch block. I have this catch block. Now what happens? Let us check. I'll comment out this one, save it. I'll call it promise. Now, now I'm getting like promises resolved. What happening is when I say fetch dot then. Now this behaves as this is an asynchronous program function, but then block makes it like stops the execution, stops the execution of this uh, next steps and waits for it until this timeout function is completed, like whatever the time we have assigned, and then gets the data and then it filters. It might be then or it might be an error. So let us see what happens if it is false. Then it gets rejected. Let me say it false. Then we'll get data, right? Sorry. Yeah, yeah. False. See, when false, then reject is happening. So when reject is happened, promise is rejected, then error block is getting. You observe, right? When I get resolved, the then block is getting executed. When I get when I get rejected, I'm getting this error. So finally, we can see the all the three stages in the promise. Whenever I call it as an asynchronous programming, then it shows like let's see all three states at once. See why I'm getting pending first because this is an this considers to be asynchronous and it executes in the flow and it doesn't wait for the result to be completed and it's showing that that is the thing. Mm. So it will be true. Let's check. See, when it's true, the promise is pending. It pending. We know that stage it doesn't wait for the result to be coming. So it gives it. It completed. Then as we traditional method of then and catch in the promise, we are doing this. So promise has two things. One is a creator, which the promise is created, and the promise caller. These two are promise callers. So, and promise has three states. They are pending, reject, rejected, and resolved. We have seen all these three states and the caller and now promise is completed. Now let's see what's an asynchronous program. Uh, Let me just clear this all out. Let me bring from the promise async and await. Let's just copy this. So let me just remove this So we have seen this thing of promise there. I have a promise. Async and await. Let me say what's async and await. Mm, See, async and await are used to make promise easier to write. Like, uh, let me be clear. We are having this done and catch, right? Done and catch makes it look in block, like very much intended, like in blocks code. So what async and await does is async and await makes our code to be easier to write and easier to see, like easier readable. What's async and what's await? Uh, let's see it like await makes the function wait for promise, and async is like a function that returns promise. Now we know the traditional method of calling it like using then. We have seen it before. Now let me say I want to use async. So let's async and await. What it does is like converts this promise of asynchronous into synchronous. So what in synchronous we can do is assign the function call to a variable, right? So let me write result equals to fetch data. Tab. So and I'll console log the result. We will see that what happens. Async.js. See, it's happening same. The thing is, like before we called without the, it is showing the pending state. I said that await makes a function to wait for the promise, right? So I'll put the await keyword and let's watch what happens. And when I put the await keyword, wait, I'm getting error. What it says, let's see here. It's saying that await is only valid async function and the top level of modules. See, it's saying that async is only valid in the top level modules and in async function. That means we can't write async uh, properly. So let me just put it in the function as you were saying in function. Let me say show data, and I'll put this code here, and I'll just call the show data function. Now, as we see that in modules or everything, it might happen. So again, it's saying it. This means not normal function. High level functions are something like this can be written only in uh, see now I think it's saying only in async functions. Then we can use only async. See, I'll put the async keyword before the function and I'll call it. See, now it's saying data is fetched. What it is making this. So here we can understand that async await cannot be written outside an async function. So it must be written in async. So async and await are both simultaneously need to be worked. Why this is better than the promise? Let me say, see here I have done data and this all indentation and stuff and making this a block of code and this another block of code. This is not the ideal working. In working, we have many lines of code in real time that make it look very large. Then this type of single level code helps us to make it clean and understand. So that's why async, I said before, it makes promises easier to write. So we have seen this how async and await are. So we have seen that await cannot be written without the async. But what if async can be written? Yes, it can be written. Let's see. Like I'll have another result and I'll say uh, async function without await. Let me save it. Let me call the function. See, it doesn't. That means async function does not necessarily need await, but await must and should require the async function. This is what async. Uh, and I have mentioned in before point saying that async makes a function return promise. What does that mean? Let me show you here. What that means is I may return, see here result is an primitive. That means it's a string. It's a primitive for me. It's a primitive. It's string. I'm returning a string. What generally might happen when this code is written, right? When I have written the async function show data, it should return the result that is string async function without. But what it might return? It's returning a promise. Why? Because async function, whatever we may return, it is a primitive. Why not it be an string, or it may be an integer, or it may be a floating value, maybe a number, whatever it makes, but it converts into a promise. That's what async and await does. So here we are clear with what's async, what's await, and what are promises, callbacks, and closure. So let us build a small to-do application using closures. Like closures we have seen, right? Everything has a private variable. Like so here to-do is also like similar to this. I can have an centralized private variable of to-do, and I can create function, create to-do list and delete them like that. Let's see what it is. So I have written the code here where this is an outer function. This to-do list is an outer function. This function has an private variable is all. All is an uh, all is an list. So all is an array. Now coming to the first function, which is add. What does this mean? So what add makes is it will help to push uh, add an new to-do task. This will help to add a new to-do task. And what is mark as read? Once the task is completed, we can make it it will help to mark the to-do as completed. So, and I have here other functions is overdue, today due, and later due. What are these functions? So I have the time in the to-do list. So I'm saying that if they are overdue in the sense like they they must be done before ahead, like yesterday or day before yesterday, but it's overdue. I haven't completed that one. Then those comes under the overdue and due today. That means their due is today. We need to complete them, or we have completed them. We need to see them. And due later. Those are the things. Due is not today, some other day, maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow or some other day. These all I have a similar code, but the thing is changing here is a relational operator. So the code is like function name, function type, and here I'm returning all. All is what our variable of uh, to-do list, a list of array of to-do list using filter function. Here in filter function, filtering as item, if that and in that returning it, if the item dot due date, if the due date is less than today. What's today? Let us see it continue. Today, that means before, if that expires before today, then it should be overdue. If it is today, due date is today, then it must be today's due. If item is due later, then it must be greater than today. So what is to display list? To display list makes it to return all the data, all the to do tasks which we have. So here in this is function call. I'm sending a list, our list, and in that returning a list. In that list, map the items as item uh, that is returning like first I'm considering a constant completed text. What this completed text is, if my task is completed, then I no need to perform it in the do or overdue. So I can mark it like into. I have completed that task. If I haven't completed the task, I need to do it. This is I'm crossing off my task which is done out of my to-do list, which is not done. And written, complete the text. Whatever the text is completed, I want to show it either completed or not. I want to show it and title, what the title I have given to it and what its due date. And I'm mapping that list with uh, the join string into a string. This and a new line and the next item. So after we have seen right enclosure after completing that function, I'm returning that function. Similarly, after these all functions, I'm returning all variable, add task, mark as completed task, function, overdue function, due today function, due later, and to display function. Now I am creating an instance for the to-do list, a to-do. Here, what's format date? So I'm saying today, right? It need to be understood. Today doesn't mean that today, right? It has a date like 14/12 something. So that thing is filtering where it's passing a D in ISO.string splitting T and dot zero. What is this? So here let's see this. What is I'm creating a new date. See what here it happens is when we call the date function, it creates an object of today's date. That object will be like something like Tuesday, not like that. Today's date 14/12/2024. It has t and spacing. It will have the time and it will have 00 and lastly z if it's an something like string happens like this. So what this is being passed to today, this is being passed to the format date. So in format date it is splitting in between the t, so that it gives a list, right? We know that. So it gives the starting one, that means our today's date, that date is being written. So this will format. This is what format date function is. I'll get today's. For yesterday, what I'm doing is I'm sending it into format date, creating a new date object. In that new date, I'm setting today's date plus get date. I'll get the date as 14 minus 1. That means it's 13. I'll have 13. That will be creating a new date and that will be 13 of new date, and in that I'll having a new date will be created for 13th like this, and I'm passing it to format date and it's filtering out the primary date similar to the tomorrow. Now let's create some tasks. In todo.add, first I'm adding one of the tasks like title 501 midterm assignment, due date is tomorrow, completed 2, and another one is pay electricity bill, due date tomorrow, completed false. Let's say a service vehicle and due date is today, completed false. It's not completed. Complete the project, due date yesterday, yes, but completed false. Now I want to console log the date, the things. I want to see the all the data, how I can see it. Like console.log. This I want to see the today list. That's why, and console log overdues. What are overdues? I want to see it right now. So what I'll do is create an object for overdues. We know that, right? It returns the list of all overdues. So I'm calling that and send to do. I'm sending to the overdue. So then it will filter out all the overdues. So that filtered overdues will be sent to display dot to display list. So that list will give an string for us, that formatted string. I'm consoling log that string and adding new line to it. Similarly for due dates, same thing for due letters. So let us see how this works. Let's see the output. Node to do dot js. See my to-do list. What are the overdue tasks? Complete the project because it must be completed day before yesterday, but it haven't completed. So I need to complete it. Due today. What are due today? Service the vehicle is due today. And due later. What are due later? For me, it must be completed on 14th, but I have completed it, so no problem. Pay electricity bill is must be completed. That's fine. So this is the to-do list I've completed. So this is all the video of closures, callbacks, promise, async await, and basic to-do list using closure. Uh, thank you for joining the video. Thank you.